the advisory committee, and I'm calling it to order now. We are going to first start with all the budgets that our town administrator, Dawn Lowe, handles. So if you want to come up, we'll just run through those.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And start with 122.
Yep.
Do you have the list of them by order?
I do.
Okay.
I'm just going to work out of the binder, the same binder that you have.
No, I just wanted to put my keys away because I didn't want to walk out, get logged out, and realize I couldn't get home. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
These over here so I don't lose them. So, 122. Here we go. 122 is I submitted a flat budget. We seem to be running fine in that area. I'm not seeing any run rates that are concerning to me. I do have the ledger with me if I did print out the ledger just for my budgets in case there's anything that needs to be referenced, but everything in there I believe is flat.
Don, I know I should know what weed is, but I can't remember what weed is.
WEED is the nonprofit that services people in Bolton, Lancaster, Clinton.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
They just haven't asked for their
It's just in
annual.
there, yeah, it's in their budget.
Yep, they usually ask in the springtime.
Okay, so that's flat year over year for a total of 19,620.
Yes.
Does anyone else have questions about budget 122? All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
For 123, the one thing I should note for you is that by the end of the year, we will need a transfer in the wages line. That's the wages for my assistant, and that's due to, we had a couple-week training overlap before Linda left and Jenny started in the new position. Also, we had to pay out Linda's vacation and so forth, and things that she was entitled to, comp time that we paid out. So I have the figure. And I'm not asking for a transfer tonight, I'm just giving you the heads
That
up.
heads up at the end of the year.
So it'll be $2,825.89.
Okay, so I'll just say roughly $3,000.
That's what we're looking at right now.
Okay, but then that, your FY 2021 request, we have it as 274,646 and 48 cents.
That's correct.
Which is actually a year-over-year decrease of about 1.53%.
Yes.
And that's because of the fact that you have somebody new in the position.
That's right, being paid somewhat less.
Yeah.
Everything else should be pretty much flat.
Yeah, it looked like nothing else had changed. All right, any other questions? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
151.
Everybody's favorite, legal services. We are clearly going to be needing transfers for this year. As far as the budget goes, I'm saying we might as well keep it at 50. I can tell you that the drivers for this year are a couple of pieces of litigation that we hadn't anticipated. One has been settled. One, I think, is imminent to be settled. I don't see either of the cases carrying into next year. As far as the regular expenses go, I settled the police contract. I settled the fire contract. I'm just now beginning negotiations with the DPW for their new contract, which I believe I'll have settled this year, and that takes very little town council work anyway. It's really the police union that requires the lion's share there. And then the other expenses, you know, we deal with zoning issues and so forth, and, well, zoning and things like, and town meeting, the prep for the warrant and town meeting and so forth is always a significant expense. Yeah, it's the litigation we just had not anticipated.
Yep. So do you have a sense of the magnitude of how much you'll be over the 50 grand for FY '20?
I think we will be at least where we ended up for FY '19, which was 70.
70,000.
So I think in the order of magnitude, I would guess of about 20,000.
Okay. But you wanna leave the request at 50,000 for FY '21?
I do. I would hate to tie up money. I mean, if we stay out of court next year,
Yep.
I would hate to tie up money that we don't have to tie up. I'd be more comfortable coming back asking for a transfer rather than asking for money I don't need to budget for.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
192.
192 also it's exactly flat year over year. I would say the one thing you might note is postage. It appears that we've spent all the money already. Actually, technically that's true. We spent the money and it's in the postage account, but we haven't spent against the account yet. So we had to populate the money first. This is primarily for the mailings for annual report, the annual warrant, that type of thing. So it'll get spent, it just hasn't been spent yet, but we did have to populate the account.
Remind me again what's the capital outlay?
Capital outlay, good question.
I remember Linda told us last year too, but I forget.
What is capital outlay? That, I believe, has to do with outlay for click charges and so forth against the copier.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what she said.
Mhm. If Linda said it, it's true.
And then are you comfortable with the total 29,135 being pretty close to what you think you'll need to cover heating and electric for next year?
I am. We've got the electric rates locked in,
Oh, okay.
and it's a good rate. I just locked them in November, I think it was, and slightly down year over year. So I think it's a very competitive rate, and so yeah, I am comfortable.
All right, is there a motion to approve 192?
I move to approve. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. 94.
No, 194, and I haven't tied this off with the Notchka, but we're gonna be repackaging 194 and 945, I think, because of the way Maya produces the billing.
Okay.
When we get to the end, or whatever you want, I can tell you what Maya's given us for percentage rates, and we have changed a lot of them, but we haven't changed, I'm sorry, percentage increases in the rates, but we haven't changed the 194 and the 945 yet. That's a tweak that Notchka's gonna have to do. We just got some of the numbers Friday.
Oh, okay. Why don't we go on to 195, and then we'll deal with that insurance stuff at the end.
Okay. Town reports again. Okay, this is separate, I've talked about postage. The postage and the other one was just for the annual, the warrant being mailed out. This is for the town reports. And again, the number, it's already been put into the postage account, but it hasn't been spent against yet.
Okay. All right, so that was pretty straightforward.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. 243.
Want me to do it?
Right, That's really the annual, the planned 2% COLA to the inspectors is the only change.
Same thing for 244.
Yes.
I move we approve 243 and 244. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
I vote.
Aye.
Okay. Yeah, for both, yep. 303.
303, the request for this year is $17,043, which I just got actually you have in these handouts here.
Oh, okay, so we have, yeah, I was
You have updated pages there.
I
You
think
got one.
we've got one.
Okay, good.
We passed them out to everybody. I actually had great assistance trying to collate those suckers.
okay.
Now, is 303 the one that is cut off?
No,
No.
303 is the first one, post-secondary.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Oh, yes.
And that's for the one student that we're sending to Assabet, rather than
Oh,
Minuteman.
okay.
And do we know how much longer that is?
I believe the student is a,
Sophomore?
I think it was a sophomore last year. I think they're a junior now.
Okay.
I think we've got one more year after this. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember.
Well, since there was no budget in fiscal year 2019, it sounds like they're probably junior this year.
Okay.
We're going to be paying for the junior year, and unless things change. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so, I mean, there's nothing you can do about that.
No, it's really not optional. The student goes because it's a circumstance that for whatever reason, cannot be dealt with at Minuteman, and it's signed off by the superintendent, actually.
Yeah.
The Neshoba superintendent.
Okay, I will.
I move we approve.
Second it.
Okay, for a total of $17,043. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. 440.
Okay, 440. So we are requesting that be kept level funded. And if you look at the January ledger, you'll see the run rate and you'll say, why are we gonna keep that level funded when we've only got $878 left? The reason is that there were repairs that were done to the equipment that should have been charged against that account that we set aside, the special repairs account.
Yep.
A couple of years ago, we funded with, $65,000-$70,000. So when you back out those repairs, which were, bad English, $2,991.66, and you'll see this adjustment in the February ledger, that actually sets the account at a balance of $3,870. So when I calculate that run rate, when I add that in, that has us having spent $5,075, and that has us at a run rate for the year of $8,945 against a budget of $8,700. So it looks like we're within about $300 of the budget.
So is this something where we have like a monthly cost or a quarterly cost, do you know?
We have a monthly cost that we spend against. These repairs are, as required. But
Okay,
And it's always broken down, whatever the expense is, the district pays 85%, we pay 15%.
okay,
This is the school system?
Yes, it's the treatment plant over at the school system,
Okay.
what we use for the library and the public safety building and for the Houghton building.
Okay.
so this is 15% of the treatment plant purchase of services.
Mhm.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
What budget for the rest of that, if that's only a percentage?
I'm sorry?
Okay, could you explain that to me? I'm sorry.
Oh, sure.
I was trying to figure it. So the sewage system, the treatment
Yes.
system
Mhm.
is for the school, and then we also come from Houghton and from the library and the,
Library, public safety, and Houghton.
also go over there as well. So
Yes.
that same system, all right. So is it in their budgets as well as additional amount?
Yeah, the 85% is in the school district's budget,
Okay,
which we fund out of another pocket.
okay. Okay, whatever. I'm not sure I got that clear, but I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Well, it's in their budget.
Yeah.
So it's assessed to the 3,000.
So this is just the two public buildings.
Well, 3, counting the Houghton Library and public safety.
Okay. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
912.
912 workers' comp, we have the number from Maya, so that's the number we've been told to budget for.
So, do we have a new one for that?
Yes, it was cut off the
Ah.
Workers' comp.
I have 33,666.
Okay. There, put it in.
Oh,
All right, so is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve that. 912 for, what is it, 33,666.
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then 945.
And the 945, that's the other adjusted, as I said, Minaj is capturing all that in a different way this year because of the way that Maya bills. The one change year over year that we'll see, and it's only a few $100s, is now that Michelle Carlisle is the collector, you also have to have her bonded. She didn't need to be bonded before. It was just a treasurer and the accountant before. But that's just a couple of $100s. What I will tell you, that overall, the report we got from Maya, is the property section has a valuation increase of 2.5% to keep up with inflation. Professional liability stayed relatively the same at 0.5%. Workers' comp had a few changes, which was 2.5% increased. So overall, the increase is about 6.6%, if you look at everything. But they also have a 3% prompt payment credit if we pay the full invoice in July, which of course we would. So we get 3% off the bill there. And that's also before the Maya rewards calculation, which we won't know what those are until June. But with Maya, there are certain online courses that you can, certain courses, and many of which are online, some are not, that you can take, and you get credit against your bill for that, and then the bill would be reduced by a certain amount. It's not huge money, but it can add up to, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 depending on how we do that. So we're trying to, I'm encouraging the staff to take the trainings that are applicable. I've tried to set an example. I've taken 4 trainings on cybersecurity myself. And one thing I mentioned last year when we switched to Maya, we saved somewhere in the neighborhood of about $40,000, and we picked up cybersecurity insurance last year, cyber insurance, I should say, that we didn't have before. So it makes me feel comfortable.
What does Maya stand for?
Massachusetts Insurance,
Interlocal Insurance Association.
I'm sorry, Interlocal Insurance Association, thank you. I should have let Brian answer that.
So I want to make sure I'm getting something clear. When I look at 194 and 945, FY20, the total was, FY20, 194 was $55,960. And then for 945, FY20 was $84,165 for a total of $140,125. Now for FY 2021, that request is $119,429 in total. So it's a considerable savings year over year.
Yeah, I made the same observation, and I can't explain that. I need Ninotchka to explain to me how those numbers came together like that. But she did say she was going to create one new, either it was going to be a revamped 945 after eliminating 194 and capturing everything there, or she was going to do it under a different number. So I can't give you an answer for that. I have a feeling that something else needs to be in there that isn't. But
Okay, all right, so we'll talk with Ninotchka about that. Yeah, because I know,
yes, something didn't quite balance for me, and as I said, we just got the numbers in Friday.
okay, so maybe we shouldn't approve any of this stuff tonight.
I wouldn't do anything with 945 yet, for
Or
sure,
94,
or 194.
Okay,
I wouldn't. And that, I'm sure it's explained in 5 minutes once Ninotchka's back.
okay, yeah, we can ask her about that.
But, no, it's been a good year. with Maya. You know, it was not an easy decision to change, but it was certainly from a fiduciary responsibility, it certainly has paid dividends for us.
Okay. Feel a little bad because we're running ahead of schedule, and I don't know if the Board of Selectmen were planning to be here for your discussion of capital. So,
I don't know. I mean, they've been pretty good about attending. I don't know if they were coming tonight or not.
but why don't we get started?
Okay. So, capital planning has been done differently this year with the capital planning committee on hiatus. I've met with, Joe Lynch, Kelly Collins, and Pat Maroney from the schools. So what you don't have is what the schools gave us. This is the detail on the two projects that I agreed to move forward.
I've already done one.
Oh, that's right.
So this is the school project.
Yes, 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 both at Florence Sawyer, well, one at Florence Sawyer and one that would serve both. But maybe I should just, well, why don't I walk through this, because these are the ones that you haven't seen. First, the window replacements. It's not window, it's the window balance systems. It's not the windows themselves, it's the hardware.
Hold on 1 second. I don't know if you want to make sure that Bob has a copy of that. We're just starting to discuss the capital items.
My budgets are done already.
Get out of here. Really?
Yeah, it sailed right through.
The agenda was wrong. Our stuff always goes at the end. It should always go to the very end.
Well, I'm sorry, I took your agenda literally.
Sorry.
So.
I guess you'll just have to go over it all again, Don.
Oh, look, we can do that, we can do that over coffee or whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, preferably whatnot.
You
So. So as it says, many window balance systems are broken or failed. Older window balances need to be replaced. They viewed it as a safety reason to be able to, if they need to open the windows on hot days, they feel it's unsafe to open the windows now. I think I thought it was a valid concern. And then the booster pump for the domestic water that services the central office, Emerson and Florence Sawyer, is at the end of its life expectancy, and they're seeing signs where they're pretty concerned about it, and they highlighted it as a critical need. If the pump failed, until we could fix it, they wouldn't have potable water for the school, and school would need to be closed. So to me, $40,000 to get an aging pump out of there made a lot of sense.
Did they mention what the life expectancy of the replacement would be?
I believe Pat said either 15 or 20 years.
Okay.
I want to say 20. I didn't put it down in my notes, but that's my memory. And I just didn't want to mess around with potable water for the schools.
Yeah.
So on this low-tech handout that I have, I did two things. I captured the capital requests. What I brought forward is in black ink. What I didn't bring forward is in red. And I noted the department requesting, whether it's DPW, the district, or the library. And then in the bottom left-hand corner, I had my prioritized list based on my conversations with the department heads. Mine I gave you.
Don't see the red.
Oh, yes.
There's not a lot of red. So, and the land acquisition, which is the Taggart property, that's in red right now because we have unknowns. Right now, the price tag, the going price tag is $650,000. But that may change because we don't know for sure whether or not the land is buildable. So we've hired an appraiser to go out and determine that.
How large is that tract?
45, 46 acres.
Right.
So, and it's currently not on the warrant, but I believe it will be on the next version of the warrant for discussion with the selectmen. Rebecca's working hard to get me some additional information. I don't know that we'll have the appraisal for next week, but 650 is the number that we're running with right now. That's the most conservative number we would have, and that's what we would plug in for consideration. So, that being said, not surprisingly, the Wattaquatta Hill Road culvert was the #1 priority. Quickly followed by the exhaust filter for the public safety building. You know, we've had some serious air quality issues over there, and I don't think we can let that go. Third was to get 4 mowers / tractors. Kill my sounds and haptics. That was a weather alert. Because right now, we have, OSHA regulations are now apply to municipalities where they didn't before, and the equipment that we have right now does not meet OSHA requirements.
Can I ask a question about that? So did that become true by virtue of like a mass general law?
Mhm.
And was there any, I'm guessing no, but was there any state funding to help?
No.
Okay, municipalities.
That was your basic unfunded mandate.
Okay. All right, I don't want to interrupt anymore. Go ahead.
So then, #4 was the pump for the water for the schools. To me, 3 or 4 are interchangeable. You know, one is as important as the other. We need to have safe equipment for the DPW. We need to have potable water for the schools. So I would have done them 3A and 3B really if I had to.
Yeah.
The painting for the library, $50,000. I can't see deferring painting. I mean, it's, you know, it definitely needs it. We've got a good estimate, you know, we still need to go out to bid, but, you know, but we've got a good estimate, scope of work, that type of thing, so I'm comfortable with the 50,000. Then we've got the 4 overhead garage doors at the public safety at the DPW barn. If we had to go another year, we could. I wouldn't advise it. I think we would have to be in pretty tough shape to not do that. Then the window repair for to the hardware for the windows at the school. And then lastly, the landscaping at the town hall, and my asterisk got cut off somewhere here, I guess down there, but up top, where you see number 8 under the DPW column, that source of funds would be the remaining funding from the portico article. So we wouldn't have to do an appropriation. It was planned that once the portico was done, we would do resloping, regrading and so forth.
Do we have that money as part of the original budget for the portico?
For the portico, we do,
Right.
yes, yeah, from an article from.
So that's not additional, let's just authorizing spending for that.
That's right, that's right. So we've already got the money to spend against, and it's approximately $14,000. If we can get landscaping done for it, terrific. If we can't complete it, we'll take it as far as we can, but we need to address the water runoff first.
Yep.
Before we do anything else, and fix the fence, get the berms right, that type of thing. As I was saying to Brian before the meeting, if we were in a really, really, worse year than I think we are, I personally would probably draw the line after #5 and do the projects down to the painting, and then hold off on the other 3. Well, actually the other 2, because the landscaping is not an appropriation. So we could hold off on 6 and 7, but I think we'd have to be in bad shape to do that. I didn't bring the pavers forward for the library because, yes, they are coming up, and there's a bit of a trip hazard there, but it's not something that has to be done.
I've seen worse.
You're right, exactly.
So I had a couple questions. One was just in terms of your needs for the warrant and the selectmen's needs. I'm not inclined to like vote on these until we have to,
Right,
right? But
right.
what should we keep in mind for planning, like what should we be voting on these?
Well, first of all, I will say that the first draft of the warrant assumes borrowing only for the culvert
Okay,
and assumes we're funding the rest with free cash. Now, obviously, that can change, but, and we won't need to fund the entire 420 through borrowing because the Notchka does have turnbacks from other articles that can be applied. And I want to say that's in the neighborhood of about $190,000, $190,000. So that will come down. I would suggest that we have the final decision done on the capital by mid-March. Because at the last selectmen's meeting, which is March 26th, the selectmen will be voting and signing the warrant. So that'll give you the ability to give the selectmen your final input then, and give us time to adjust the warrant.
and then in terms of the 420 for the Wattaquattack Hill Road culvert, I think we might have asked Joe Lynch this when he was in, but like how solid is that number? Is it based on estimates that he's gotten already?
It's very solid, and yes, it's been based on engineers' estimates,
Okay,
and we're feeling pretty comfortable with it.
okay.
So the only things we're not considering for this year would be the pavers and then the radios for the DPW.
That's why I pushed the radios out.
So on the radio topic, I thought a year or two ago, the DPW was in, or somebody was in saying that
Last year.
we were up to get, if we don't use the radio spectrum we have, we're likely to lose it. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I have a general recollection of that point too, like that we have a designated frequency and that if we don't use it, then that could expire.
It could, it's not gonna expire in the next year,
Okay,
but
Okay.
we could lose, you're absolutely right. If it goes unused for too long, then we could lose it.
because I'd really like to see this at some juncture move up the set of priorities, and I can understand this is not the year, but
It actually did move up this year until, because what Joe originally submitted to me was to do 2 mowers this year, 2 mowers next year, 2 mowers in '21 and 2 mowers in '22, and start the radio program. And I thought personally that, and he agreed, that doing all the mowers now was more critical than starting with the radios this year, because of the OSHA issue, really.
Yeah.
It's not that the radios are unimportant, it's just other things were higher
no,
priority.
I know, it's just been a perennial request, and at some juncture we need to treat it seriously.
No, we
You know,
do, we definitely do.
So
And I also am hoping that we can defer some expense, because the fire department is currently switching over to new radios that were gotten, that's not a good English, that were obtained through a grant through the regional dispatch.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna have some radios that can be repurposed. Now, that's not gonna take care of everything, it's not gonna take care of the hardware in the trucks and all that and certain things, but it can defray a few $1,000s in expense.
Yeah,
So we're gonna work on repurposing those next year too.
well, I think there's some value in moving forward with that at some juncture in the not too distant future, because I think it's more efficient in terms of the plowing and getting the roads done.
Oh, I think you're right, absolutely right.
So can you explain the totals line on the Florence Square school building stuff? Because I see a total of 194,168.
Oh, I think that's.
Absolutely, because this is page 2 of 2,
Okay,
and you don't have page 1 of 2, because the 2 projects I brought forward were both on the same page.
okay,
And it was a test to see if you were reading.
okay. What was taken off the list? Apparently $130,000 worth.
Yeah, $130,000 worth, which I can answer.
Just curious.
Sure. Well, for FY '20, there are other things such as flooring replacement, which for $30,000, interior painting for $13,000, which they determined not to be critical. Mechanicals for Sawyer heating replacement of the failing legacy system for $25,000. Which we're dealing with that through a Green Communities grant. The heating control replacement at Sawyer School for $98,160. We actually appropriated that in this budget as part of the town share for the Green Communities grant that we got the 200.
Wait, is this FY 20 or FY 21 stuff?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong column.
I was wondering about that.
My mistake. All right. FY 21, carpeting for Emerson offices and main entry, 17,000.
Yeah.
That was deferred. The removal, and this is the one that got cut, because this would have been one more priority if I had left it in. The removal of the old oil tank, including engineering costs. There's an old oil tank at Emerson in the ground. There's no sign that it's leaking. The alarms are not telling us that it's leaking. It was cost $33,000 to remove it. I asked if they were comfortable that it was stable. They said they were, so I suggested that get pushed out to next year. And $89,311 for Sawyer to add a third condensing boiler and remove the old fired boiler. And I do believe that is being dealt with through the Green Communities grant,
Okay.
through the environment, through the new environment. So the big one was not to remove the oil tank for $33,000.
Yeah. And then are they still, I feel like we've seen this AC for classrooms thing and it just,
It's a perpetual,
yeah,
yes. It's been there, golly, I'll bet it's been there 7 or 8 years anyway. It's not that it's, again, I mean, in a perfect world, and there's always been a price of $350,000, but that goes back probably 5 years, so there's no way it's $350,000 anymore either, so. Would it be a good thing to be able to do? Sure it would be, but it's just not something that we've prioritized,
yeah.
mainly because of the expense.
Okay. So we'll vote on these in March. And then who's gonna be getting us, to the extent there's more information about the Taggart property, that's gonna be coming from
It'll come from me.
Okay.
you?
It'll come
Okay.
from me.
Is that the property the Conservation Commission is
Yeah.
looking at?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
just wanna make sure we're talking,
And,
I was thinking the same thing.
yeah, I mean, I'm trying to make sure that we understand what the actual market value is. I mean, if it's 650, it's 650, but if it isn't, we need to plan accordingly. And Rebecca has researched various grants. And we could, one option is to put it on the warrant and word the article in such a way that if we don't get certain grants, then we don't go forward. I'm not gonna try to predict, what we're gonna be able to do yet, but, I just wanna make sure that we've got all the, the best information that we have before we start planning on it, knowing that time is short.
I'm just gonna check this. Does anybody else have questions?
No, that's straightforward.
You never have to ask yourself whether or not Mike's here.
So we'll be meeting with the schools in a couple weeks, so, hopefully we'll have to have their assessment by then.
Yeah, at the last update I had from the superintendent, it was down to 4.1. But when Dr. McCarthy was in meeting with the selectmen last Thursday, she said that, she reiterated that, they're taking the town's, request for 3% very seriously and working to get there. Lancaster has the same request we have.
Yeah.
Lancaster's in very tough shape right now. And we're trending very closely to Lancaster this year. We're still the leader again, but if we're us at 4.1%, put Lancaster at 4.01, so we're basically interchangeable right now.
Okay.
So I'm cautiously optimistic.
Well, thank you for the information tonight. I don't know if anyone else had questions.
I just have one question, and it isn't strictly financial, and that is, what is the status of attempting to get another Bolton representative on the school?
It's a good question. I've been working on that with Dr. McCarthy. She and the chair met with Pam and me last Monday for the second time, and then she came in Thursday night to update the selectmen. And the way I look at it, it's like a good news, bad news scenario. The good news is that based on the spreadsheet that DESE uses, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, to calculate these types of things, Bolton does indeed qualify for a third school committee seat. Unfortunately, Stowe and Lancaster now qualify for a fourth school committee seat.
Let's move it.
So as I said, our voting power is gonna change from 25% of being 2/8 to moving to 3/11, which is 27.27%. So we're increasing 2.2% in our voting power, so, not a huge difference, but the census data was gathered and, the numbers are the numbers. So it looks like we'll need to, Pam will have to have ballots, printed up with another seat on it for Bolton. The caucus is in 2 weeks, so 2 weeks, March
So
3rd.
it's definitely happening this year.
Oh, it's happening. I mean, it sounds like,
So the school committee's gonna expand
It's
by
gonna be-
3 members?
Unwieldy, it's difficult now.
it is difficult now, and Lancaster has one seat they can't fill now.
That's right.
So how they're,
That's voting power for them.
I know. So, the school committee will be voting at next week's meeting to officially move forward, but that appears to be what's going to happen. And since DESE is involved, and DESE has said the regional agreement is not in compliance with the one person, one vote philosophy, then, when you're not in compliance with DESE, you have to get into compliance, so I assume it's going forward, but until the school committee vote next week, it's not official.
Okay, good question.
Any other questions? I'm happy to. All right,
No, thank you.
great. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. It's nice to see you. And
To see you.
we have to do coffee again.
Yes, I was thinking that when I saw you come in. I'm around more. It's getting cold up in the North Shore.
Oh.
Too damn cold.
Climate change, it's not cold anywhere anymore.
Oh, when that wind gets off the water, you have to.
All right, have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Don. Good night.
We did run through his other budgets quickly.
I assumed the reason you were doing minutes first is because he had another commitment and he couldn't get here till 7, so.
No, sorry about that. No, I
That's
think
all
what happened was, originally we were gonna have the town treasurer at 6:30, and then at the last minute, she had to wait a week, and I didn't even realize that Jenny just filled it that way, so I apologize.
I didn't have any issues with his budget anyway, so it was
Yeah.
just,
We didn't change
We didn't either.
okay, so, that's fine.
The only thing is that we didn't vote, so because the insurance,
Yeah, it's
is
still
different
open.
this year, so that's still open. Were you there for that part, or?
No, but it's late every year, so I'm not surprised you're delaying that.
Well, and it's also like the way that it's divided up this year is different because we're with a new carrier,
Right,
and
so
so,
it's grouped differently.
yeah, so Nanachka's gonna help us figure that out.
Okay.
Next week, we're meeting on Wednesday instead of Tuesday.
Yep.
Other than that, is there a motion to adjourn?
We skipped over 131, 132.
Oh, you know what? That's a good point. I was thinking that we could probably do our, let's go to 131.
Good order.
So, I actually want to wait on 131 because I heard recently that that might be increasing slightly from the MMA. And so I want to check in and see whether 180 is still a good number. But I think we could go ahead and vote on 132, which is our typical $100,000 reserve fund allocation.
I move to approve 132 for $100,000.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, yeah, and we'll vote on 131 after I get a new number. Thank you for
The
reminding me.
dues is a question?
Yeah, because it might go up a little bit. Good night, thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, so now is there a motion to adjourn?
Do we have any advisory meeting business, like minutes or anything? All right. I move we adjourn.
I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good night.
Thank you.
We are still on.
We can toss this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Is that a paper recycle bin? I don't think so.
So Brian, it looks like my little girl's gonna go teach English in Italy for a year.
Aw.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, and she's great. She's apparently first in line if she wants him to come back and get a master's in Italian
That'll
at
be
UMass, and a paid master's.
Wow, good for her.
That's very cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Can I go?
It gives me a reason to go to Italy again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This is you need one.
That place deserves several visits.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Thank you for the minutes.
Oh, sure.
The town secretary's out this week, so I was like,
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't want to have to make somebody else print everything out for tonight. But we'll do all that next week.
Today was surprisingly short. I thought this would be like a marathon, but.